Do not skip that step. If you give yourself the time and you do it right, then you're going to have a stronger law school application. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited for today's video. If you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about building a strong law school application. And I don't have any notes. All I have is a topic. And so we're just going to kind of jump right in and see where it takes me, see what I want to talk about. If you guys do not know, my name is Sephora. I'm a licensed attorney and law school coach. I help individuals get into and succeed in law school. Okay, make sure you follow me on all my social media. It is at Topping the Curve, which is my law school coaching page on everything. Okay, guys, so building a strong law school application. I feel like so many people don't know what the different factors need to be considered and talked about and brainstormed and just everything before actually jumping in and writing. So many people when I say so many people, I mean a lot of my clients, a lot of people who I talk to, they just jump into the writing stage and they haven't even brainstormed and they don't even have an idea of what it is they want to tell the admissions counselors. They don't have an idea of who they are as an applicant or essentially, what it is they want to get across to the applicant. I'm going to start us from the beginning and we're going to just kind of go through how you can make yourself the best law school applicant that you can be when you're applying to law school. So first and foremost, you have your 4 main documents plus 1. And I say that plus 1 because of your addendum, right? So you have your personal statement 1, your diversity statement 2, your resume 3, your optional statement 4. So those are your 4 main documents. Some schools may interchange the diversity statement and the optional statement. So that's going to depend on the schools that you are applying to. And then 5 would be an addendum. So do you need a transcript addendum, a GPA addendum, whatever it may be, right? So when you're thinking about, going into and preparing your application materials, the first thing that you want to ask yourself is, who am I, right? And that seems so just like general, but it's a question that needs to be asked. Ask yourself, who am I and why do I want to go to law school? And you hear this all the time, like, what's your why? Tell people why you want to go to law school in your application materials. And I think that's true, but it's also a little bit misleading in a sense because it leads applicants to focus all of their materials and especially their personal statement solely on what they hope to do in and post law school, which is a mistake. And why is it a mistake? Because your documents should focus on you and it should focus on your story, not necessarily like whether you want to practice immigration law or personal injury or civil rights or criminal law. And so your why matters because it's going to help inform your law school application process, but it shouldn't be the center of what you're talking about in your document. So when you're asking yourself, who am I and why do I want to go to law school? I want you to get behind that why you want to go to law school and ask yourself, okay, why, right? So you have your why do I want to go to law school and then pause and ask yourself, now, why do I want to do that, right? And so to give you an example, if you say, well, I want to go to law school to help the less fortunate. That's your why, because I want to give back to my community, right? So then you would have to pause and ask yourself, why? Did you grow up in a community where you didn't have the resources that you needed access to? And that's the why behind the why of you helping your community. Did you want to help your family? Why? Maybe they sacrificed for you and you want to be able to return the favor, or maybe like your parents growing up or your mom, whatever, had to work 3-4 jobs and you want to make it so that she doesn't have to, right? So you see what I'm getting at, right? You have your why as the baseline, but then you have your why behind the why, and your why behind the why, that is what is going to carry you, okay? That is what's going to carry you. So once you've got that, then you can actually jump into some brainstorming. Okay, so now you're asking yourself, what have I gone through? What makes me me? What are some challenges? What are some obstacles? What are some victories? What are some successes? What are some things that make me unique, right? So just list everything, like literally list everything, leave nothing out. And this is the brainstorming process that so many people skip when they just jump right into their application materials. So list everything down, okay, like here is all the things that I've succeeded in. Here's all of my accomplishments. Here's everything that I enjoy. Here's all of things that I feel like have made a difference in my life. Here's the people who I feel like have made a difference in my life, right? So you should literally be writing all of those things down. And only once you have those things written down on paper are you moving closer to building that strong application, because now you've actually identified concrete things that you can talk about in your application materials that is actually going to make for an interesting story, make for an interesting application, and make for an interesting applicant who you are showing the admissions counselors can now perform well in law school because of whatever you've done, whatever you've learned, whoever you've become because of those stories, right? So once you've got that list brainstormed, then you can actually start to connect some stories to these ideas that you have. Once you've connected your stories, you take those stories, and those are the stories that is going to make up your application, okay? Those are the stories that are going to make up your application. Do not skip that step. Do not just jump right in. When I go through that step with my clients, when I go through this brainstorming process with my clients, when I'm asking them 1,000,001 questions and I'm getting all up in their business, right? It is the things they would least expect. And I'm like, that's the one. That's the one that you should write about in your personal statement. That's the one that you should write about in your diversity statement. That's the one, you know? And so you can only get there once you've gone through this process. And it's not even like, oh, it's a process of elimination. It's which one of these can I tell the best story about? Which one of these is going to show the admissions counselors that I am going to be a good law school student and a good attorney, right? So for example, one of my clients who I was just meeting with, today's Saturday, who I was just meeting with on Friday, she had two really, really great ideas. And I said, you know what? One of these two are going to be the personal statement. I don't know which one, but right now, these are the two that you should take with you. These are two that you need to do initial drafts on. And then usually after, this doesn't happen with all of my clients, but after those two initial drafts, we go through like a couple more rounds. And then I say, okay, yep, this is the one, right? And then maybe the other one we can move to a diversity statement, or maybe the other one we can move to an optional statement, or maybe the other one gets dispersed within the first one, right? So the point is you're picking out these stories that is showcasing your unique qualities, that's showcasing what you've been through, that's showcasing your values, that's showcasing your characteristics, that's showcasing that you are going to be a strong law school applicant. So you're doing this, and you only have to go through this brainstorming process once. And I want to emphasize that this is why you need to be as thorough as possible, because if you do it correctly the first time, then you're going to have multiple different ideas for all of those statements that I mentioned in the beginning. It's not like you need to go through a separate process for every single document. Go through it once, do it the right way, write it all down, and then those multiple different ideas can go to those multiple different statements, okay? So after you've done all that and you get into your writing process, then of course you are going through multiple drafts of building your strong law school application. I cannot emphasize this enough. A strong law school application takes at minimum 3 months to build. And if you are working full time, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. I want to say I worked on my application about 4 to 5 months. I worked on my application and I was working full time. I would recommend the minimum is 3 months. Why? Right? Because that brainstorming process, that's not happening overnight. That connecting those stories to the ideas you've written down, that's not happening overnight. Distilling those stories and figuring out which one is going to be the best and which one you can actually put into a cohesive statement to tell a cohesive story, that's not going to happen overnight. Like, all of this takes time, and all of that is done before you even start drafting. And the drafting process in and of itself is going to take a decent amount of time, right? Especially because you should be reviewing it. You should be getting someone else to review it. So just remember that when you're going through this process, you have to make sure that you are giving yourself time to do it correctly, because the more time you give yourself, if done right, right? I'm not saying give yourself 4 months and just dilly-dally and like don't actually do things. Like, if you give yourself the time and you do it right, then you're going to have a stronger law school application. And the other thing that I want you guys to think about is every single document should tell a story, right? So you have those 5 documents that I talked about in the beginning. They should all tell a story, but they should not be repetitive. So if you talk about one thing in your personal statement, you don't need to go talk about that same exact thing in your diversity statement or in your optional statement or in your resume. And yes, your resume tells a story. For many of you, it's not going to tell that cohesive of a story or like that dominant of a story, because unless you've had a long-term career when you're applying to law school, in which case it might. However, for many of you, it may not, but your resume is still substance, right? Your resume is still substantive and it still tells the reader something about you. So in all of your documents, make sure that you can say, like, my personal statement tells the admissions counselors this document tells them this document tells them this. And when I look at all of these things together, this is the type of applicant they are going to see that I am. Okay. So if you don't have that idea before you jump into writing your materials, you need to take a step back, pause, go back and get that idea. What is it that you want the admissions counselors to know about you, okay, as you are applying to law school? And I'm talking about how to build a strong law school application, right? And so, of course, naturally, that includes your GPA and your LSAT. And so when you're talking about hard numbers, if you were out of undergrad, there's little to nothing you can do about your GPA. That doesn't matter, right? There's little to nothing you can be at your GPA. If you have a high GPA, great. If you have a 3.6 and you wish it was a 3.7, if you wish it was 3.8, whatever, right? There's little to nothing you can do about that. What you can always control is your LSAT. Everyone should be aiming to get the highest LSAT score possible. Get as high as an LSAT score as you can, because it is going to aid you. It is going to show admissions counselors that you are more likely to succeed in law school. And as of today, as of May 2024, the LSAT is still in full swing, okay? So get as high as an LSAT score as possible. What I like to say to my clients who are typically aiming for big law jobs, federal clerkships, and top schools, things I have done, is you need 3. Your LSAT, your GPA, and your application materials, right? Everything else are soft factors, and maybe I'll make another video on soft factors. But you need all 3, especially if you're aiming for those tippity top schools, especially if you're aiming for these schools. However, if you don't have one of the 3, which is usually going to be your GPA or your LSAT, then the other 2 need to be phenomenal. Landing a big law job is not easy. Landing a federal clerkship is not easy. Trust me, I have done it multiple times, okay? Getting into a top school is not easy, right? And so if you can't hit all 3, the other 2 need to be phenomenal. So you are in control of your LSAT. You are in control of the strength of your application materials. You are in control of your application, and especially when you're thinking about these goals, give yourself a fighting chance. Now, am I saying that if you don't go to a top school or these things aren't where you want it to be, that you can't land a federal clerkship or can't land a big law job? That's not what I'm saying, okay? That is absolutely not what I'm saying. However, numbers do not lie, facts do not lie. 15 law schools put over 50% of their graduates into big law. 15, okay? There is no school, last I checked, that puts over 30% of their graduates into federal clerkships. And then only a few schools, I think it's either 14 or 15, put over 5% of their graduates into federal clerkships. So if you are not at one of these schools, one of those 15 that I mentioned, does that mean you can't land one of those 2 things? Absolutely not. It means you are going to have to work harder to do well while you are in law school, so you can be one of those 30% or 35% that does get the job, which typically equates to being the top of your class, which I always say is not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee. You can work as hard as you wish, as hard as you want, and still not be top of your class, because law schools do grade on a curve. So do yourself a favor. Put in the work at the application stage to make your application as strong as possible. And if you guys are watching this video, I have an offer for you. You can click the link in the description box, or it will also be on the screen. It is toppingthecurve.com/workshop. I am hosting a workshop coming up soon where I'm going to be teaching you guys how to build the application that you need to build, okay? So again, visit toppingthecurve.com or just click the link in the description box. And if you guys do not know, my name is Sephora. I'm a licensed attorney, a 2-time federal law clerk on both the federal district and circuit court. I had multiple big law firm offers while in law school, worked at 2 of the top big law firms, and I help individuals get into and succeed in law school through my coaching company, Topping the Curve. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below and let me know some other videos, law school videos that you guys want to see topics on. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. See you guys on my next one. Bye.